Yeah.
Just in case.
I don't see any need for us to be.
The last one.
I don't think I have anybody who's tonight.
That's So what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, I was walking what they're saying is, saying like, so what it might help you. We're,
All set?
I got the freeze on, yeah, we're ready. I think I told you a couple seconds, it's 5 minutes. I'll just let you know.
New Kent County School Board. And in consideration of the absence of our chairman, Mr. Reimer, who is ill, we wish him the best, I'll be fulfilling the responsibilities as vice chair and chairing the meeting. And like I said, we wish Chairman Mr. Reimer well. Could you poll the members for presence, please?
Ms. Cunha? Here. Mr. Pagano?
Present.
Mr. Vaughn?
Here.
And Ms. Dombrowski? Here.
There is no need for consideration of closed session because there was no closed session. So we're going to move right into new business. And the first item on new business is teacher retention and recruiting committee charter first read. And that is actually on me. So I would like to. Is that up? Yeah, that's up. Aside from some grammatical errors that were pointed out to me by some of the teachers on our school board committee, which I very much appreciate, we also will be changing some of the verbiage before this becomes a approved committee. If we can look at under membership, where it says in the last paragraph, second line, the committee is closed to non-members. We're going to strike, we're going to put the committee is closed to non-member apart from presentations approved by the committee chair. So non-member participation is what we're going to replace that with, so that it that was my intent, but obviously it was worded in a sense that it may be somewhat confusing, so we're going to straighten that out. Under moving down in the document under responsibilities, the second bullet, the committee shall gather information from teachers at all grade levels about ideas, thoughts on retention and recruitment, rather than where in the original document it says recruiting also. That will be changed. Under the fourth bullet, this committee should be creatively, that's how that starts. It's going to read, this committee will have a think outside the box approach and consider creative incentives beyond salary, which include but are not limited to areas such as childcare, educational incentives, and vacation/leave benefits. And then the last change is under meetings on the second page. And the end of that will read, the committee will review its charter at least biannually and recommend any proposed changes to the school board vice chair who shall present it to the board at large for review. We'll strike boards or board out of that. Any questions, comments? Anything else on that document?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yeah.
on the meetings portion,
Okay.
you said the committee will meet at least bi-monthly and
Biannually?
oh, I was wrong, the wrong part. Okay, you're on the second, okay. So can you read that part again? I'm sorry, I was reading up a bit ahead.
The committee will review its charter at least biannually and recommend any proposed changes to the school board vice chair, who will present it to the board at large for review.
Gotcha,
We just struck
gotcha,
Yeah.
thank you.
grammatical issues. Anyone else, anything else?
Not about the document
Okay.
itself, but I do have a couple of questions or comments about maybe the methodology or the approach.
Okay,
So I'm just curious, let me just kind of state my position first. So the idea of teacher retention and teacher recruitment is of the utmost importance. I'm 100% behind that idea. I realize it's harder now than ever to shop for those teachers. That said, I also think our administration does a wonderful job. My understanding is that we're at 98, 99% capacity as we sit here today. So I'm just curious about whether we have a demonstrated need to actually form a committee that then comes with all the formalities of a committee. And does that add an extra burden to the staff, us as school board members, and admin itself, right? Is there another way that we could possibly get this information, get some creative ideas from, again, the boots on the ground, the teachers themselves, you know, sort of like we did with the cell phone, we got 120 different comments, and, you know, is that a way to get sort of the same goal accomplished that then feeds that information back to us that we could share with administration, maybe in form of a policy that they can then use in their recruitment procedures in lieu of this formal committee?
yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think we're on the same page here. The idea of the committee is to have the committee do the legwork and the footwork. I have talked to folks in the administration and teachers who will also make up that committee. And that's their wisdom, especially the teachers and administration, are imperative in the process. So it's more of a lending hand to them as we move forward, with the understanding that the number of teachers available and graduating declines each year. So we want to stay ahead of the curve and figure out how we can best work with administration, teachers, and committee members to recruit and certainly retain teachers. So that's really the purpose in doing that. It's not excluding or working apart from what's going on. We just want to provide a helping hand, legs on the ground, if you would.
Again, I'm 100% behind the purpose, and I agree with everything you just said. I'm just, you know, operationally, if the committee is gathering data and then reports back, you know, consistently to the school board about that data, we're not acting on the data, right? We're governance. Administration puts that data into play with their policies and things like that, or whatever policy we give them. So I'm just a little blurry on, you know, so we can help lend a hand or you know, require that people gather this information.
Yeah.
Right, but we're not necessarily doing anything with that information that administration wouldn't already be doing.
Exactly. It's simply providing an additional outlet and inlet, if you would, for information to come to administration, because hiring, recruiting, such and so forth are definitely in the operations side, not the governance side.
Right.
But it may come to a point where the board will have to approve a change or a policy or some new mechanism, thinking outside the box, that will help and assist operations and administration to do just that.
Right, so, again, I agree with you, Ron, but we just circle back to my original question, which is the formation of the committee with all the formalities and public notices that comes with it, the most efficient way to initially launch or accomplish that goal?
If there's recommendations, suggestions from anyone on the board about a more efficient way or a better way to do this, I'm open to it. My point is, this is the reality of what we're facing as a school system. This is the reality of what's happening with teachers. Let's figure out a way to keep the amazing teachers we have and recruit other amazing teachers, and not just assume that it's going to happen, because we do have amazing, our human resources department, and you know, what they do is amazing. There's no two ways about it. But I want us to start thinking proactively rather than being backed into the corner and having to compete with salary alone, which that ultimately comes out of approval through the county. And I would rather have some plan in place that isn't standalone, tied to the dollar, but into other things that are important.
Again, I agree with what you're saying, I just think this is maybe a little cart before the horse, and maybe you just answered the question that I have, which is, so here would be my recommendation. If we just put out a poll or whatever the device was that we used to get information and feedback from the cell phone policy, right? And we get all that information and feedback from all the teachers, from all the admin, and then with that information, we can distill down, let's say, a half a dozen ideas, and then you can have a committee formed to proliferate those ideas, bring them to admin, and put them into place. I guess my point is, I don't think we need a committee and to have public notices to gather information.
And I'm fine with
It
that.
seems inefficient to me.
Yeah, that's fine. And
Where, you know, when we put the thing out for the cell phone policy, it was within a couple of days, the responses were tremendous, right? And there wasn't this formality of, we gotta have a public notice for every committee meeting, right? And we gotta do these votes and so on and so forth, where we can just get information in as fast as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And then
it
from
does.
there, if we've got these 6 outside of the box fantastic ideas that we want to actually bring to life,
Sure.
you know, then maybe the committee says, all right, here's how we form a committee to say, here's how we put those steps in place in conjunction with admin and HR, and then we can put that out to the public as one of the things that New Kent County offers. Is that, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. And if that's all, this document, the way it's written, has inspired us to do it a little better and a little faster, I am so on board with that. My point is, I want us to start moving and thinking in that direction.
Agreed.
However it looks in terms of getting that information. But certainly, to your point, the highest consideration is teachers, their input, and administration. They've been working through this already, trying to make this happen, so.
Mr. Vice Chair, I do think that there's benefit to expanding the pool, certainly primarily teachers, administrators, but there are people in the community who are business people who have businesses, and they may have some of those outside of the box ideas that would benefit. My daughter, for example, she is a nurse, and in the nursing system, they have a tiered approach to how to reward teachers and salary on a verified criteria basis, which is brilliant. And for example, that could be something that could be introduced to the committee, but if we don't have a committee, maybe in some fashion. But I think it's great to really open up the possibility of having different viewpoints from the community. We have a lot of expertise in the community that can provide some ideas or thoughts.
Oh, excellent, I agree. And my intention was to make sure that we did invite, you know, outside of this profession even into it, because things are happening in other professions that, you know, have to meet the same criteria.
And I think, Mr. Vaught, the point for me might be that, you know, in the next couple of days, we could put out one of these polls and get a tremendous amount of response before we even get to the second read, right?
Sure.
of this committee charter, and then we've got a tremendous amount of information and data before we have to have a meeting next month. If that
Excellent.
makes sense,
Oh,
right?
it
And that's
does.
just, it's fast tracking,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
And like I said, I am good with that.
I just want to make sure that it's a transparent process. And
Well,
that, you know,
that-
obviously,
That and that we get a complete input of all possibilities and thinking outside the box. So, yeah, great ideas, I absolutely, and like I said, if it ends up that this document just inspired the conversation that we just had, and it doesn't do anything else,
Absolutely.
I am overjoyed for that to happen.
So if I might, Dr. Nichols,
Yes, sir.
you helped us with putting out the poll for the cell phone policy.
Yes, sir.
Are we able to do something similar for the teacher retention and recruitment, creative outside the box ideas that we're looking for?
Absolutely. And Ms. Anderson and I can go to work on that this week. I will say that teacher response to email is not going to be high right now.
Yeah.
But in 3 weeks, it'll be really hot. So, on the 12th, pretty much everybody is back. So I would say we could put it together, share it with the board, talk it through, and then push it out. I do a Monday message every Monday, the 12th is a Monday. I can put it out and say, hey, the board would really like your input on potential recruitment. It can fly, and then we can see what comes in.
Yeah, it's sort of a blue sky approach. Whatever your idea is, let us hear it.
And I think, Dr. Nichols, it's not, this is, we don't want to get in the way of the things that need to take place as school starts. We don't want to be, so if you discern that it's better to wait another week or 2 weeks or whatever, please take that liberty to do that, so that we, priority one is getting the school year started and everyone settled into that, and then from there, we'll look at this.
Okay, so we'll go to work on it
Yes,
this
sir.
week, Ms. Anderson and myself, share it with you guys, and then pick a time, a point that you would get the most feedback. I think the beginning of the year is a great time to get feedback, and then we can kind of go from there.
Excellent.
So
Thank you so
I have it
much.
on my task list.
Any other comments? Okay,
I'm just, so how should we approach the draft of the charter?
it is as it is. Yeah.
Well, I think what Ms. Sweeney is asking is, do we need a motion to table it, or can we let it lie because it's first read?
We can let it lie as it's first read. There's no vote on the table with it or anything else right now.
Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification.
Absolutely. Next, we have old business. Strategic Plan Committee and Charter. And I will call on, if she would, Ms. Cunha to discuss this.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So basically from last time, there was an issue where we had the committee members list attached to the charter, and it was suspected that wasn't such a good idea. So we removed the list, and so now we have 3 separate documents. We have the charter that establishes the strategic planning committee. We have a separate document for the list of strategic planning committee members, and I believe, right, there it is. And then we have a third document, which is basically just the proposed strategic planning schedule. Of course, the dates can be changed. One of the changes that we had to do, for example, was the kickoff date. Originally, we had it for the 25th of July, and based on the fact that we're at summer and that a lot of people are away, we think it's best to postpone that first kickoff meeting to the 27th, Tuesday, August the 27th. And hopefully we'll have everyone here and have a great kickoff meeting.
That is the first week of school, so we should be pretty full of that.
Yes.
And they should be back.
And they should be back. Everyone should be back, including parents from vacations, et cetera, community members from vacation.
Those last 2 columns should definitely be back.
Okay, any discussion? All right, The next item on old business is cell phone policy and Governor's Executive Order number 33. Mr. Greg Reimer is not here, so let's look at that policy. This is the second read on this policy.
Mr. Barton, you want me to talk a little bit about the executive order just publicly?
Yes, please, Dr. Nichols, thank you.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So Governor Youngkin issued executive order number 33, if you've been following the news, establishing a cell phone-free education to promote the health and safety of Virginia K-12 students. So it's an interesting intersection with the board taking this on a few months ago and the governor issuing an executive order. So the order kind of sets in motion the Virginia Department of Education's expectations. The Virginia Department of Education is tasked with putting together guidelines/model procedures for a cell phone-free education. The executive order has a start date for this as January 1st, 2025. Board members, you've been working on this cell phone policy for several months. To pause this and start in January, I think would be highly disruptive to administrators, teachers, and so forth. I do believe that you can continue to work forward on this policy as the Virginia Department of Education releases guidelines. Actually, in the governor's executive order, it explicitly states that school divisions can move forward and then make any adjustments by the time this comes out. So there is a listening session for our region. Our region is very big. So it is in Chesterfield, and I'll get the date while you guys are talking. But so that is kind of an interesting intersection from the last time you've met and discussed this piece. So it looks like all school divisions in Virginia are steering towards this by January 1st. Some have already done it. Some are like us in the middle of an implementation. And then it looks like we'll all be there January 1st. So any changes required in the guidelines, we would bring before you in October, November, so we'd be able to make that shift. So we'll communicate with the Virginia Department of Education and keep the public aware. So that's just the executive order, which is new since the last time we met.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
As the policy has been posted and reads under section 4, if you would take a look at that, exceptions,
Yes.
and I am proposing an amendment when we get to this, that section 4 will stop under medical need or to monitor or address a legitimate health concern, period. Striking or as permitted by a teacher for specific instructional purpose or classroom-based exercise would be stricken from the policy. The rest of it, as it reads, realizing that section 6 under discipline, the 4 sections there actually line up with our regulatory process as well. So there would be no need for any change there, as they will marry very well together. Any comments, suggestions on this policy?
Mr. Vice Chair, I have put together some proposed policy changes to the policy that we proposed. I don't want to complicate this process at this point. I've just written things out. I've made copies. If it's something that is going to hamstring us and not get to pass it all tonight, it's nothing outlandish or out of line with what we've already proposed. It's just providing a couple of additional specifications that I would feel more comfortable having in there. But again, if if at this point it's going to keep us from moving forward tonight, I do not want to do that. So what would you propose is the best?
Well, thank you for your, first and foremost, thank you for your flexibility on that. My proposal would be to pass with the simple amendment of striking a sentence rather than wholesale change, and that you bring this back up for review. At any point in time, we can go back and amend a policy. My recommendation, due to the timing right now, is that we pass the policy as written with the one amendment, and then revisit this at a later date. Is that, you good with that?
I am, except for I did have one change in addition to striking out that specific sentence,
Okay?
was that I wanted to ask if we want to allow for school administrators to authorize teachers to submit requests to allow their students to use their cell phones for specific instructional classroom-based exercises or other extenuating classes. Are there other extenuating circumstances based on the fact that any permission would be very narrowly construed?
So, Ms. Dombrowski, just to clarify what you're saying, in lieu of striking it, and in lieu of saying that a teacher has carte blanche, the ability to make the decision, that it is an option, but the teacher has to request permission from administration to be able to allow the students to then use their cell phone for a particular educational purpose, science project or otherwise.
Correct. I would like to provide some flexibility, given some of the feedback that was received. I am worried about it becoming a very slippery slope very quickly.
You took the words out of my mouth.
So I understand the reason why we wouldn't want to have it in there at all. But it was something that I felt should be addressed at this time.
Do you have a specific example of when a cell phone is necessary in the instructional process and that a teacher would need to ask a student to take their cell phone out of their locker and or out of their backpack, turn it on, and
With science labs, if they are monitoring a specific project where it's helpful to have those pictures to take in progress is one example I can think of.
so they're currently doing that?
Yes.
My understanding is yes.
Okay.
May I offer a suggestion
Sure.
to the wording? It's just a suggestion. So as permitted by a teacher for a unique and very specific instructional purpose, which has been approved by building administration.
Potentially added, like pre-approved by administration. We could develop, jump in, we could develop a process, including documentation that has been provided and very narrowly, limit the occasions that occurs. I do have a worry we're going to encounter some things we haven't thought of, that this would give us time to order. So your vote, for example, we don't do the cameras anymore because the cell phone camera is a lot better than those pieces. But whatever the board does, we'll make work. But I can see some field-based experiences where kids go out, that it may be wise to have them do that. But I do understand the slippery slope and having a clear delineation.
So that section would read medical need or to monitor or address a legitimate health concern or as permitted by a teacher for a specific instructional purpose pending prior approval by administration. Is that,
It'd be clean and clear. We could bring back to the board kind of what that looks like and how we would
Okay.
execute that. we have a meeting next weekish with, and we're saying administration, we're really thinking middle and high school, and this one more high school, but to kind of share that process with them.
Mr. Dombrowski, would that be satisfactory
Yes.
with your concern?
But I do, my concern is if you're going to take it and add that, does that prevent us from then passing the
No.
policy?
No, ma'am.
We'll vote as an amendment tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got that, we would put that down as a shift or an edit. And then we would work on the how is the piece that, we're filling in the details pending approval policy.
Then may I also
No more. That's it.
suggest some other, in addition to providing that allowance, I also suggested that we remind them that students who use their personal electronic devices and accessories outside of these permitted allowances will still face the disciplinary consequences outlined in specified code of regulation. Again, I don't know if it's needed.
I think it's redundant.
Okay.
You do have that.
It accomplishes that already.
Okay, all right, just making sure.
It's assumed in the discipline piece, but we can reinforce that.
Okay, and then my other question was in regards to the discipline portion, bullet points 1 and 2, are we kind of are we specifying too much in that section in any way, at least in the first 2 bullet points, as to what the regulations will be? I'm just worried about keeping the administration from being able to specify what they believe needs to happen, as opposed to us saying, well, this is the way it's got to be. I get that it's very generalized, but I wanted to throw that out there for discussion.
Well, it lines up with the specifics of the regulation or regulatory policy. So I personally don't see any need to change it, move it, or do anything with it. It's in line with the regulatory process. And, whichever, if you refer to one, you refer to the other in terms of discipline with the policy itself. And I think it would be better to have it as a regulatory, or as a tutor, if you would, to the regulatory process going forward. So that doesn't get changed with indifference to the policy itself.
I concur. I also think, Mr. Dombrowski, that we're going to be reviewing this again when we get the guidelines from the state.
Right.
That may line up with what we've already done, or may require us to make a change in terms of enforcement. So once that comes down from the state, we'll be reviewing again and probably editing.
And board members,
Thank you.
so this policy, once if approved, would go into our code of conduct, the student handbook. Did I say that right? Student handbook code of conduct is a piece of that. In addition would be consequences related to some of the regulatory pieces. But we also have a caveat in our code of conduct that code of conduct can change as we go throughout the year. As we bring discipline data to you and we work through those things, you may want to go, this is a level 3, we may want to make it more harsh, or we may want to make it this. So we have that in there, so if we bring it back in October and we want to make some shifts, we have that language covered. This code of conduct is coming to you, could not come to you until this was completed, so it's scheduled to come to you in August. We're looking at first offense as the warning piece and the contact with the parent guardian, which is outlined there. The second offense is confiscating the device, documenting the offense and requiring the parent guardian to pick up that piece, which also lines in there. And then the third offense is that it will be confiscated again, it'll be documented, and the student's not allowed to have it on campus for the remainder of the school year.
Dr. Nichols, can you mention what the first offense was? What was the first offense?
First, staff members provide a verbal warning to the student, document the warning, and notify the parent guardian. So there's a notification piece first. And you guys saw some of this in the, way back when, in April, as far as the
The
consequences.
issue I have with first offense for a high school student as opposed to an elementary school student, and even a first offense as a warning to a middle school student, is that that student can get a warning first period, and if there's no way to document it and make that public to the rest of the staff, specifically teachers, they could have gotten 4 warnings that day, and then they're not aware of it.
With all due respect, that's a regulatory
Yes.
thing, so I'd rather hold that for a regulatory, for a discussion. And I
I
hear
just
what you're
wanted to make
saying.
my point.
Yeah, just previewing kind of what
Yeah.
I don't want
it's
to
got.
elaborate on
Yeah.
this any further, I just want to point that out there, that I think that we need to look at that further.
Excellent.
I was, can I say one more thing?
Sure,
as well?
please.
So we're kind of behind on the timing of all of this, so we can't get, you can get stuck in this.
Yeah.
August 12th is the next board meeting. Teachers are already in session on August 12th. So we've got to move on some of this and kind of figure it out as we go and shift. Because we have an obligation to communicate to families. This is a huge shift. Teachers, families, and all those pieces, our communication's set to go out on August 5th. I'm beginning to worry about that more and more. So I don't disagree with you at all, but some of this we're going to have to work out as we go.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And,
Just to, if I can have a full
Yes, sir.
say, just to follow up to that, Dr. Nichols, so policy passes tonight, how does the implementation work in terms of notifying the teachers? Like, what's the waterfall process there?
Great question. So if policy passes this evening, we're planning a notification to families, which will likely be phone call/email with a link to the website. We always drive all traffic back to the website, which will have the policy there. So that'll be first. When the student handbook and all the parent information comes out on the 5th, that'll be another piece where parents actually sign off on having received that. It'll also be a part of the back to school activities with families, with students, pointing about the citizen town halls, and all of those different components leading up to it. So it'll start here with me, and then it'll move to the schools, primarily middle and high school, related to those pieces.
So obviously the teachers are in the room and some that are watching on YouTube right now, but when do all the other teachers know that, school-wide, county-wide, this is what we've done?
At the same time, so I'm sorry, when I said family communication, it's also staff communication at the same time. We hit both of those switches so that we always want staff to know it in advance, or at least at the same time. So that communication is simultaneous, will be simultaneous. Yes, sir.
And FYI, for the board, in discussion, Vice Chair with Dr. Nichols, he has also agreed, as we move through the process with any new policy and with the policies and changes, that there'll be update on discipline issues and what has occurred and how that's working out. So there'll be feedback. It won't just be, posted and expected that, there'll be the accountability piece, which I think we're all considering, will be a part of the follow-up on the process.
Well, that's kind of where I was going with this, which is, I think that the teachers need to know that this school board, this cell phone policy is not optional.
Right,
And
and
it needs to be enforced across the board by all the teachers to have any real effect.
yes, and I agree, and that's the very discussion that we've had, is making certain that there's no gray area in the civil, that it's the policy, it's code of conduct and regulatory, to be done. Okay? We good?
Sure.
All right, action items. First action item is consider approval of strategic plan charter. Do I hear a motion to approve the strategic plan charter as presented?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
could you poll?
Yes, sir. Ms. Cunha?
Aye.
Mr. Pagano?
Aye.
Ms. Dombrowski?
Aye.
And Mr. Vaughn?
Aye. Okay. The motion passes. Item B, consider approval of strategic plan committee. Do I hear a motion to approve the strategic plan committee as presented?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Aye.
Could you
Oh,
pause?
second.
Ms. Cunha?
Aye.
Mr. Pagano?
Aye.
Ms. Dombrowski?
Aye.
And Mr. Vaughn?
Aye. Motion passes. Consider approval of cell phone policy. Do I hear a motion to have the cell phone policy approved as amended?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
A second?
Ms. Cunha?
Aye.
Mr. Pagano?
Aye.
Ms. Dombrowski?
Aye.
And Mr. Vaughn?
Aye. It passes as amended. Information items. Our next meeting is the regular meeting on August 12th, right here in the boardroom. Closed session begins at 6 p.m. And with that being said, the meeting is over.